everybody. Welcome to Trans Radical Activist Network. We're actually debuting a show up close and personal, and we have a very special guest tonight. We have Misha, and most of you may know him on TikTok as Don't Cross a Gay Man, and he is very hilarious. I suggest you give him a follow. So I wanted to go ahead and welcome you tonight, Misha.
Hi, thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, welcome, awesome. Misha.
Yeah, hey, besties.
I actually love how you do that, by the way, because it gives a lot of encouragement. And by the way, is that Harmony, Justin?
Yes.
So that's our mascot, actually, for Trip.
Oh, hey, Harmony.
Yes, cute kitty. Oh, it'll bring a lot of positivity to these
I got home. So, okay.
So Up Close and Personal is basically a show where we're going to give it to you, Misha. You basically are going to discuss what you feel comfortable discussing. If you are comfortable sharing this, just for people who don't know, if you don't mind going into like your coming out story.
Sure. So I'm a little older. I'm a millennial. And so I think back to the days of MySpace, the original Facebook, all of that. And so when I was in high school, I didn't have any sort of like grand coming out to like my friends. In school, I was very much just who I was. And one day I was just like, oh, look, him over there, he's cute. Like no pomp and circumstance around it. I didn't feel like I really had to, even though I came from this very, very small town in Western New York, very red area. But I just didn't feel like I needed to do that. However, with my family, I had on my little MySpace profile that I was interested in men or gay or whatever the prompt was back then. Mm-hmm. And my sister saw it, my younger sister, and she actually showed my parents. So I got home from school one day and I didn't have a cell phone. Like cell phones we had like those flip phones with the snake on them, right?
I remember those.
Yeah, right. And so I didn't have a cell phone of my own. And so I get home from school and the house phone rings. I pick it up and it's my mom from work. And she says, hey, I got a question for you. And I said, okay, what? And she said, your sister showed me something pretty interesting yesterday. Your MySpace profile, and it says that you're gay. And yep. Ta-da! What did you think all of those like musical theater rehearsals were for, Mom? So, but it's really great. Even though that's not the way that I would have preferred to do it. I have been very blessed with an amazing family. My mom and dad are like my besties. They had me when they were really young. So we hang out, we go on vacation together. It's never changed our relationship. And they've always accepted me with open arms. So, and we have to acknowledge when we're lucky and blessed. So that's me. Yeah.
That is amazing. Honestly, like I can kind of relate to that in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I can relate to that in a way because like when I came out as trans, like I knew like my family was kind of mixed, you know what I mean? Like my dad was hella conservative, my mom was hella liberal, so it still kind of made me feel uneasy. So like when I came out as trans, I created another Facebook profile. I was hoping nobody would find it, but next day my mom found it and she is like, okay, what the F is this? And I'm like, oh crap, I did not want you to find out.
Yeah, I can relate to that too a little bit because me and my mom, how I came out to her was my cousin called her because I was not supposed to have a Facebook at the time.
Oh my God.
And she looked through my Facebook profile and I woke up one morning, I sat on the couch in the morning waiting for the school bus. Mom was like, hey, can I ask you a question? I was like, yeah, sure, what's up? And she's like, honey, I gotta ask you a question. I was like, just spit it out. I gotta go to the bus in like 5 minutes. Spit it out. It was funny because she asked me, she straight up asked me if I was gay. And I'm like, Mom, what the fuck? And I'm just like laughing. I'm like, Mom, no, but I feel like a dude. And she's like, and all her response was, okay, I'm accepting. Let's just not tell your grandfather.
Oh,
And I'm just like, oh no.
You know,
yeah.
and Noah, you said like, even though, your family, your parents accepted you, that you still held on to some discomfort. And I think that's something that people take for granted, across the board, kind of, is that we spend such a long time in our childhood and growing up kind of minimizing, the damage of who we are. We hide the things that make us stand out as being different. And when we teach ourselves that, when we live in this world of masking who we are, it's very strange and very uncomfortable when that mask is lifted, even if everything went according to your hopes and your dreams. And I can relate to that too, even though it was still weird, the first time I ever, mentioned a guy in front of my parents, or the first time I brought somebody home, and there's still that kind of like almost internalized homophobia that you have to fight against every single day,
Yeah.
until you finally figure out who you are, without that facade.
Mm-hmm. Yep, but yet we have people in power saying that that's not the case and it's not good for our mental health, which I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Again, I'm going to encourage you all to please review the actual mental health science. Just a PSA.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I
um,
didn't choose this. You think I would choose to like men? Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
it's like I didn't
Yeah, like,
choose to be born in the wrong body. Okay, like I'm sorry, like it happened.
no,
Okay, I'm happy. I'm living my authentic self. Like leave me alone. I am a human being. I'm not a species. Like I mean, it's ridiculous. Like I mean, but that's been a stigma for years that all of us are just like aliens just because we're outside of the norm. And
Mhm.
honestly, like discussing the norms, I feel like has created a lot of division within our own communities. I mean, personally, as a trans man, I have experienced a lot of like hate from other members of the LGBTQIA plus, which is kind of like what's been my inspiration and drive to wanting to start this network because the hate is very real around us. Like the oppressions are going to come back for each of us. And it's very scary right now. And I mean, honestly, for me, we just need to put the pettiness aside and actually sit down and have uncomfortable conversations. So, I mean, I kind of wanted to get your aspect on this, Misha. Like, have you experienced any type of like backlash from any other type of member of the LGBTQIA plus, or even your own?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of been my lived experience, kind of my whole time as an adult, honestly. I grew up, my dad was in the military, so he was going away. He was being stationed different places. And so were all of the other men that he worked with. And so, just naturally, I was brought up with my mom and my sister, a lot of my early childhood. And then a lot of the friends around were also female. um, and so they were my saviors. They were my safe space. They were the people that I loved and adored and looked up to and learned from. And so my very first introduction to the world of being a cis gay man in college was, being left out. And the reason I was left out was because I wasn't, actively going up and kissing their ass because they were gay. Like the circle of gays in this small college that I went to, expected me to, hit on them and want to be a part of them, and you be only that, use that as my entire identity. When really I had so much work to do as a music and theater major. I was constantly busy, and I had this really great group of like my girls, that they were my people. And in turn they turned that back, like I was standoffish, and that I thought I was better than them, and that I didn't need them. But really I just didn't want to only be with them, and that was my introduction to the world. But now cut to today, and me like building a platform on social media, and you'd think that someone with the name Don't Cross a Gay Man, and my most viral videos are lessons in not crossing a gay man. One, I would just like to point out that I don't claim to speak on behalf of gay men. It is a singular gay man, right? me and my point of view. So I don't claim to speak on behalf of any sort of community. But you'd think that my inbox would be full of hate from X, Y, and Z communities. But really, the most hate I get from is gay men. It is not older people. It is not religious people. It is not anybody, and it's not any of those. It's mostly from other gay men telling me how to speak, how to think, what I should do, how I need to pivot and change what I say, because they claim that I am erasing decades of progress.
Oh my God.
Isn't it wild? And I've taken that down to a couple different things, and one of them is back to like what I said a little bit ago, in that a lot of us spend a lot of our times trying to diminish ourselves to minimize damage. And I think that might be triggering to some people to see me being so out there and so loud and so visible, especially when it comes with jokes at the oppressors, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, anyway, at their expense. Yeah. And so I think that triggers people, and they don't care for that. But I think the other part of it is that some people there's still a lot of misogyny and a lot of racism and a lot of these other things that are inherently male in our society because of the way that we're brought up and the way our society has worked. And and I think that because I'm not a singular person, I'm not a singular issue creator, or the way I think, and then I'm standing up for women. I am standing up for minorities of all kinds, my trans friends and allies and loves, Black people, people of different religions, people of all ages. And I think that really gets to them, just like those kids in college, that I'm not latching onto this as my only identity. And how dare I be a full, happy, lively person? Because they don't have that, They say you're out there and you're just being such a cliche representation of a gay man, and then I go to their page and it's just full of white six-pack people that they follow, and all of their content is grinder top and bottom jokes. It's like, well, who's the real cliche here?
Right.
And we come up with I'm not offended that you called me names. I'm offended that you lack creativity, bitch.
Oh my God. I think just the same way with transphobes. It's just like, oh my God. Like every time I deal with a transphobe, they just feel the need to drop these memes that just lack creativity. It's like, do better. If you really want to offend me, do better. Like, this isn't even funny. Like, I don't even like what the purpose of this was.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel about dealing with transphobes too. Like I had to deal with a transphobe. I'm not going to give names where or when or anything like that, but I had to deal with one, and like I'm sorry, but who's lacking everything? I can't with this person anymore. And it's so funny because they're like, oh, I'm creative, or I'm this and I'm that. And I'm like,
yeah.
How?
It's that resting bitch face there. See that
exactly.
Where are the receipts? Because I'm not full. I'm still hungry, bitch. I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for the creativity.
Yep. I'm just waiting for you guys to shoot me up. Like, I remember one person actually took a picture of I think I did a thread on J.K. Rowling as garbage bags. It was my golden tweet ever. So basically what I did, I took a picture of her, whatever color dress she was wearing, I would pick the color garbage bag and just say that was her. Somebody actually took my profile picture and actually compared it to a frog dumpster. And actually the frog was actually kind of cute. I'm like, this is actually cute. You really think this is going to offend me? Do better.
Why is it offensive if it's cute?
Exactly.
Exactly. You know,
Exactly.
I just made a video the other day about this group of, like 20-year-old boys who, yelled the F slur at me in a passing car. And I caught back up to them. And my my point to them was, I don't think you just pointing out my sexuality is the burn that you think it is.
Mhm.
I like, if I'm comfortable with who I am, if I'm not ashamed of who I am, then the joke's not funny.
Right.
It can't be funny.
Yeah.
But what's so crazy about it is that I think if we all realized that we are more than a singular issue, then we would all get along a lot better.
Mhm.
Because my philosophy is I can't expect a straight Black woman from a small town, a Republican town who's never met another gay person. I can't expect her reasonably to put like gay rights and gay marriage at the top of her agenda or the top of like what's important as she's going through life, right? She would obviously put things that directly affect her and her family and her loved ones. And I think, but I can ask that you put me somewhere on your list, somewhere down on your list, that when you do have energy or money or a desire to help and build up when we need, that you offer that up. And in return, I do the same for you. Your issues might not be at the top of my list, but I promise you they're somewhere down on my list. And when it comes time for me to use my voice or to use my time or any other resource that I have to offer, I promise that I'll give it out to you. And I think that's why I'm building the community that I am, is because it's people of all different sizes, colors, genders, sexual orientations, religions, all of them, because we're all trying to latch onto something and being like, hey, we've been bullied before, and it's time we take that back and take the power and shove it back in your face and feel good about ourselves. Collectively as a unit. And I think that's where the joy and the magic is happening from.
Yeah, I really want to bring back that message. We're here, we're queer, we're not going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually a point that you were there's something I wanted to touch on. You brought this up, is the fact that we have to kiss people's asses. Like, that bothers me. Like, that happens in the trans community as well. Like, I received that type of backlash. It's like, well, if you don't do this, then you really can't do this. And it's like, okay, first of all, who thought of these garbage expectations? First of all, I am my own person. Like, I have my own standards.
Thank you. I mean, I think a lot of things, they start off with the best of intentions. I think, the woke culture, the cancel culture is getting a really bad name. And honestly, I'm on the side of agreeing with that, because whereas we started with wanting acceptance at the base level, right? As people, we wanted acceptance, and then we were fighting for equality. But it's now turned, and it's gone a little bit too far, that if you don't walk the walk the same way that I do, then you're the problem and you're evil, and your lived experience is dismissed. And I think that's where the message is really starting to come and actually do more harm than it is really progressing us towards that equality that we want. And so, like you said, another trans person can't tell you how to be trans and how to do trans, right? How to be an activist and how to live your life and make it fulfilled and positive. And I think that social media helps with that. The internet helps with that. People hide behind their keyboards and say, well, I have this opinion and that's it. Signed, sealed, delivered. I'm yours. But that's not I don't subscribe to that. Like, box that shit up and resend it to sender. Like, we're not delivering that here, because I am, like you said, I'm my own person, and it's not fair to box us all in together, right? Like I said, I don't speak for an entire community, because okay, for instance, like, think about when you've ever been in a conversation with someone and you simply say, oh, I'm so tired, because your brain was going a million miles an hour last night, but you're speaking to someone that has 3 kids and they're like, oh, you're tired? Yeah. you deciding to have 3 children does not mean that I'm not allowed to be tired. You do not own tired. You know, like I bet you're tired, but I also can be tired. And so I think, you know, there are people like me, right? I had a pretty easy time growing up gay because I had a lot of support and love around me because my parents were that way, and we you know, we were not rich, but we had enough money to survive and not want for anything. And so my experience is different, but there are other, you know, cis white gay men who, you know, their family disowned them and they were beat up horribly and picked on, and their entire psyche and, you know, inner child was just beaten down to the point where, like, it's not fair for someone in like a trans person or a person of color to be like, my lived experience was harder than yours, and so, you know, like, you have to do it this way for me. Like, the only way for you to support me is this way. And it's like, that's not fair, because, you know, we all have it's not a black and white. There's this whole entire gray area of where we're all coming from. And so, you know, if we can realize that, and like I said, if we can just be like, I will give back what I can if you give me what you can, that we will all build each other up. And this community can come back together so that we can make a real difference when it comes to our safety and our rights. Right? It has to be a lot more than just voting. It has to be us standing in solidarity together and saying, I love my trans brothers and sisters and the theys, and, you know, our non-binary siblings, and our gay people and our lesbians and our bisexuals, because with, like, if we can all do that together, then we have a much stronger voice than all of us being secluded in our own little separate groups that every day are dividing to either even smaller and smaller and more, you know, more very specific groups. And we'll see we can see what happens in the real change, that we demand this respect, we demand our safety, we demand our American rights.
Amen to that. Like,
Amen.
I mean, if there was like a visual flame reaction, I would so do it right now. Like, that is 100% correct. Honestly, like what you're describing,
I can do it.
I call it Karen entitlement syndrome. They just need to drop it and seek help for that. Honestly, like, come on. Like, enough with this shit. Like, leave the entitlement at the door. And like, I'm glad that you mentioned about the whole thing with voting too. Like, because I got criticized in the last election because, like, I live in a safe blue state, and I voted with my conscience because I know, like, I want to promote that message. We need to demand more from our politicians. Like, if you're really for trans rights, actually do something for trans people. Not sit there and use your microphone and actually talk and saying how much you stand with us. Do something about it.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that it needs to be reactive. I think it needs to be proactive. And I think one thing that's happened is, I think politicians have settled into this safety that they already have our vote.
Exactly.
And if they feel that they already have our vote and they don't have to do anything for us, then what are they going to do for us? You know, and so we speak about, you know, the abortion Roe v. Wade overturning, like, because things weren't done proactively as when they should have happened, because they just took for granted that it would just be that way for the rest of time. Now look what's happened, and people struggle and are really affected by that. And we don't want that to happen to us either. And so and instead of looking nationally, I think it's very important to, like, really look locally, is where the big things, really big changes happens. Because now look, now, like, things are now being divvied up to the states rather than federally. And so things really matter on where you live, and cities have their own jurisdiction over these laws that govern our bodies, govern our love, govern everything, because we are not people, right? We're their little sheep. And so I think it is really important to make your voice heard. And like marches are great, marches and petitions are great, and I think that shows that there is solidarity, that there's a lot of people that feel like this. But I think doing the work that you do, Noah, really going out and teaching people and being visible in a real way teaches the person around the corner next door who's going to vote later and might change their conscience, because this year seems like, rather than the policies, I think there's really the social things are going to come down to these next few elections. And changing people's minds comes from a realistic education and realizing that the street goes both ways, and us doing our part, again, to say, let's find ways that where we can find common ground and build each other up. So that we can bring people into our army of just wanting a happy life, acceptance, and equality. That's what we want. You're allowed to be a farmer. You're allowed to be a Republican. You're allowed to do whatever you want to do. You're allowed to not believe. You're allowed to not agree with who I am. That is your right as an American. But we should also realize that that doesn't mean that you're better than me, that you should have more rights than me, and that you should disrespect and want harm for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I don't know, but voting for a president, that is one thing, but I really think that we need to get down to the local level and revitalize we're here, we're queer, we're not fucking going anywhere. So you better make the right choices for us if you want to keep your job, because you work for the people.
Exactly. And they work like 3 months out of the year, and plus they have premium health care. It's like, that must be nice. Like, I mean,
for real, I want premium health care.
Like, yep. I mean, that's why I'm for like a universal healthcare policy, because it's a fundamental right as humans. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Misha, but like with Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy of needs, like if each one of those needs are met, and they're all basic and fundamental, like making sure that you have clean water, making sure that you have food, making sure you have shelter, making sure you have those connections. When you don't have that, that person's not going to have a healthy life.
Right.
Healthcare definitely like is a big significant factor. I mean, especially like with the trans community, like there's a lot of my trans siblings that can't even have access to healthcare right now. Or some are afraid to go actually get that stuff that they need, is because they get discriminated in healthcare.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like we need to do better about it. Oh, go ahead, J-Dog.
Yeah, I've had that before. That's why I only be one specific doctor that I've been seeing since I was like 8th grade, because I actually trust her, and she'll squeeze me in whenever I need an appointment. She'll squeeze me on her lunch. She'll come over to my house. It doesn't really matter. But like if I'm discriminated, like she'll make sure that something's done about it. And like when I leave, I have to leave her when I'm 26, I think. And so like I don't even know if I want to go to healthcare, because that's the only doctor that hasn't been discriminative and has actually given me what I've needed.
And see, and that is the sad reality, honestly. Like there needs,
it is.
Like I think the problem, honestly. Oh, go ahead.
There needs to be like, I think that there needs to be healthcare clinics, ERs, offices, anything like that, that is just specifically like for people who do get discriminated, and then have people working in that place where they know what it feels like to be in our position, to be who we are, and get discriminated. Because like if we have that, like maybe people like us wouldn't be so afraid to go out. Because like I know that I would be one of those people that wouldn't be afraid if there was a clinic like that.
Well, okay, but you got to kind of go back a little bit. Okay, so there has been a lot of people misusing the terms homophobia and transphobia. First of all, it all starts with educating. you want those type of providers, they need to be educated, because right now, like from what my viewpoint, there's not a lot of good, credible like education out there. You know, like in the mental health field. And this is something I'm actually advocating for, that they need to make LGBTQIA plus and even specifically trans issues a competency in itself. It needs to be taught in grad school. It's like in my grad school program, it's not really talked about. But like they offer it as a competency like after you graduate. And honestly, yeah, that's good, but they need to have it during that program, because they're going to be therapists out there really practicing. I can't tell you how many questions I have gotten since I've actually been out in the field practicing. Hey, can you tell me more about trans issues? And it's like, okay, well, for me, I don't mind, but it's just like in the same breath, I shouldn't even have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean,
building up education within the trans and queer youth, and giving them access to like resources of education so that we can have more doctors who look like us, and who are opening up clinics and opening up safe spaces that involve everybody. But I agree with you, Noah. You're right on the thing. Like I've always thought, like education is the most powerful tool that we have.
It is.
And I think that solves a lot of the world's problems if we all just could learn a little bit, and open ourselves up to those issues. Because you're right. I mean, I can't imagine like not having the privilege of just walking into a doctor's office and being like, "Hey, take care of me because I'm here. I'm giving you money. That's what we do." And so I hope that more people listening to this podcast and going through life are just realizing and taking a breath from whatever comment they're leaving on a video on social media, to be like, oh, what is that lived experience, and how would I feel if that were me? It's incredible.
Yeah.
You also got to remember, we've been going through a pandemic too. I have been making the argument like COVID has completely destroyed everybody's mental health. It's like logic and reason are no longer on the table. Like it's insane though. But like with the transphobia I get online, see, that's why it's so easy for me to dismiss it. It's because it's like, okay, well, you're just behind a computer screen. I don't know, like maybe you should go challenge yourself. Get outside of your mother's basement. Go challenge yourself. When you're dealing with that like in person and transphobia, it's a lot different. But for me, it's easier for me to educate when I'm actually in person. Because like most of the like hate that we get, trans, gay, whatever, it's usually because they aren't fully educated. That, in a sense, is what's going to combat a stigma, because anything that comes from a stigma, it's because it's a failure of education.
And also fear. I think if also on our side we remember and give people a chance as well, because I've worked with a lot of international people from Eastern Europe, from Russia and Ukraine, and even Italy. These places that are very religious, very back in the day, where in their countries, it's very normal for any sort of phobia, all of the phobias, it's very normal. And because I was working with these people, it was incredible to watch them be very standoffish with me, very insecure, that I was the monster. And it not being what I'm used to here, of like people making jokes and, being immature, but actually thinking that I was a monster. And, slowly and surely, I'd crack a joke. I learned to speak Russian so that I could communicate with them and show them like, hey, I appreciate your culture. And that back and forth, and watching them slowly break down into all of a sudden I have these like big macho like Russian men like hanging on me and giving me hugs, and that's how I got my nickname Misha. Oh, my little Misha, and watching them completely, because they realize, oh my gosh, he's not a monster. I don't like he's not attracted to me. I'm not attracted to him. We're all good. And he's just a little human. He's a little tiny human. And so, I very easily could have thought that they were monsters, right? They were these Russian, terrible people. But just seeing that, like, they were approaching me from a space of fear. it was very enlightening for me and taught me a lot, and specifically how to go about my life also here in the U.S. Very, very invaluable, that life lesson.
Oh my God. Yeah, see, you know what? That's the thing. We live in a society that's filled with stereotypes, and it promotes that fear. It's really depressing.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that, like, it really bothers me. Like, okay, so, like, there's conversations even in the trans communities. Like, do we even want to refer ourselves as trans, though? Because it kind of reinforces that stigma in a sense that trans people are not humans. So, like, I don't know. Like, Justin, I know we kind of talked about this too. How do
Yeah,
you feel about the label of being trans?
I feel like I get in like in terms of like who we are, yeah, but I feel like there needs to be a better name than trans, because I feel like people who discriminate towards us think just because we're transgender, that means, oh, we're an alien, or oh, we're not human. Like, that's what it comes off to me as. And coming out as a youth and having that experience, even in the schools, like, it impacted me a lot. And there needs to be a part where there needs to be a better term for that, because we're human. We're all human beings. We all have a life. We all have a soul. Like, let's face it, I don't have my sanity anymore. But let's face it, I've never had my sanity in the first place. So,
I'm dead, by the way, but
but
I
like,
wanted to ask.
there just
Oh, go ahead.
needs. We're all just human beings. That's what it comes down to, and that's
There
the
is a
way it
reason
needs to stay.
amen to that. Like, there is a reason I asked that question because, like, personally for me, I don't like labels.
I
So, like,
don't.
how do you feel with that label, Misha? Like, just being labeled as a gay person?
Um, I don't know how I feel about it, like with myself personally, just because there's just so much more that I think about myself than just that. You know, I don't live under that identity. And so I personally am not very affected by it. I've been very comfortable in my life. So, like I said, I'm not ashamed to be gay. I'm not ashamed to be who I am. But at the same time, I do realize that it is a really big struggle when a part of you, or some people, like, they're very much in a headspace where they're trying to figure out who they are. And it's been a big part of their life. And their label is the vast majority of who they are at this point in time. And I can't imagine how devastating it is when the other side turns your label into a swear word. And
Oh no.
like the transphobic people and homophobic people, like, the word trans right now is a swear word in the media. It is a dog whistle to people who are spreading and promoting hate. And I think that's, what do we do? Do we take the word back and in a blaze of glory use it, or do we just say, you know what, fine, you go over there with your little word. It doesn't matter to us, because all we care about who we are. We care about about us and our families and our friends and our loved ones. We don't care about the word. So have it. But I mean, but it's true. People that have a lot of sway and power are turning these labels and using them to scare people and promote that fear, so that the stereotypes and the hate continue and spread. And I think that the more that we latch onto and separate ourselves also hurts. Right, me being, I'm about to be 35 years old, and it wasn't until this year, honestly, swear, it wasn't until this year that I met my very first non-binary friend in real life. There was not they them was not a thing growing up. That was not a thing in my college. It was not a thing in New York City, in London where I lived. It was not a thing in any of my musical theater professions and the people that I worked with. We didn't use those. I never met anybody. So it's a new thing for me. And I was just working with quite a few different non-binary people, and I learned, but I did slip up. I apologized and did my best and got there. But I can't imagine, like people that are 7 decades old and have only lived with this black and white binary, like how difficult it is for them to train their minds. We should ask them to try, but but then when they're being told by very, very radical people that not only am I non-binary, but you are also non-binary. Gender does not exist. It is a fake thing. There are no such thing as men and women. There are no he's and she's. There are no straight people. When you say just because I am this person, that also must mean that you are too. No one else is like, your people are no longer relevant. That really, I think, doesn't do any service.
That's why I said that don't say gay bill.
Oh, go ahead.
Wait a minute. I was going to say that's why the don't say gay bill just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, so you don't want to teach about gender identity. That means your identity too. So like make that make sense then. So you shouldn't be talking about straight people then, okay? Like, come on. And like that's the thing that like really pisses me off, honestly, is like, why do heteros want to be oppressed? Really bad.
Come on.
Like I just see like these days it's a competition. I mean, like on Twitter for like the past week, TERFs have been trending on Twitter. Like, see, I personally don't engage with TERFs. I honestly just put a PSA out there, just a reminder that they're garbage. Just don't pay attention to them. I mean, they were freaking out over the women's organization logo. I'm like, are you serious? You're really going to pick and choose like this is what we should be focusing on right now, but you're not even realizing you're passing all this information over to these right-wing fascists that are like aiming to kill us. Like I showed a video clip, actually. There was this right-winger. I can't think of his last name. His name's like Dalton something. But anyways, he was promoting the idea that we need to bring bullying back. Like we need to bully gay people so they're not gay. We need to bully trans people so that they're not going to be trans. Oh, and by the way, he said harassment is not good, but bullying is, which by the way, that makes no sense. But so like
harassment and bullying are basically the same thing.
I know, like he's not very smart.
Yeah.
But with people like that, like this is why like education is so important. Like the stuff is real. Like, I mean, Suguru like said this perfectly. Like when they overturn Roe v. Wade, it's like years of history is in a sense going to be kind of wiped. And with this Roe v. Wade overturn, with them, they're talking about now like abolishing gay marriage. Now it's like now we're going to face that oppression all over again. Like it's like lately it's been the trans community, but now it's going to go right back to what the gays and the lesbians were experiencing. Because I'm a millennial too, so I grew up in that time where like being trans wasn't a thing, like being gay and lesbian was the thing. But even just coming out with my orientation, it was scary. I mean, I don't know if you remember this, Justin. I know we talked about it, but Matthew Shepard, like if you remember the case of Matthew Shepard, that was my like essentially saying to me like, okay, I need to not come out because it's so scary.
Yeah. And it's what's crazy, like you're just seeing more and more emboldened people to just outwardly go back to that level of hate, and it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and I think the more that we keep pushing ourselves away, but more importantly, the more that we keep dividing amongst ourselves and just fighting amongst ourselves, it's just letting them win. It's just getting them closer to what they want. And, I've seen a lot of things because, they want to go in and they codified gay marriage when they hadn't done that with abortion rights. And you go and you see that all of a sudden there's all of this, well, of course they did that for gay marriage because there's men involved. And it's just like, no, I promise you we're on your side. We want to be there for you. Like, I will continue to fight for you. But like, I think that continuing this, like, our issue is more important than your issue is more important than your issue is just going to like get it to where, like, if they just have us fighting amongst ourselves, then we're going to go down in the blaze, and they're just going to run off with election after election. Like we were talking about, not being able to go in and find, the healthcare that you need. Imagine going off and finding a way to unite with like diabetics, right? Like their insulin, like people are dying from diabetes because they cannot afford their medicine. And we're talking about people of every creed, everybody, right? Not just gay people, not just like people can't go in because we don't have good enough jobs to give us the healthcare we need. So people literally can't afford the medicine that keeps them breathing and alive. And if we can find ways to be like, hey, our healthcare kind of can also go with your healthcare, and we find ways to connect and build all of these different communities up. And like, I feel like if we just weave in all these little fabrics to make this really, really strong blanket that just like, it'll be our little fire blanket, our little flaming homo blanket that we just like douse the bigots with. And just extinguish them out of our lives.
That's why I like it when people just tell me that they're a piece of shit, honestly. Like that's kind of in a sense like why I hate to even put it like this. This is why to some degree I can give a little credit to right wingers, is because at least they admit to me that they're proud garbage. Now I can like wipe them away from existence. So like, I mean, okay, just be real. Like, I don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, seriously, like, I mean, just if you're with me, fight with me. Humble yourself. And that's the thing. We all need to like practice cultural humility. And and that's a message for everybody, even with among us in the LGBTQIA+. We all need to recognize cultural humility and put it in practice. Just like I'm going to say on this network, thank you for, in a sense, reminding me about this, Misha. But like, even with our network, we are not claiming that we are the leaders of the trans community. Okay? Just in case, if anybody wants to throw that out, we are not the leaders of the trans community. You are your own leaders. You don't need a single leader. You are your own leader.
Mm-hmm.
That is important. You can have people you can look up to along the way. That's fine. But you are your own leader. You know your own story. You know your own self. Don't allow yourself to be put in a category, because you're not a category. You're a human being. You're an individual. You're unique.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let anybody try to dictate to you like what you should be. It's garbage. Stay away from it.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I get all the time is I don't like the way that you go about, speaking your mind. And it's like, okay. I mean, like, you can tell me that you don't think I'm funny and you can unfollow me or block me. I have all of the time for that. But you coming and telling me that I am not allowed to do something, or I need to change my language, change my point of view. It's just like, you do realize that the internet is basically limitless, right? And if you want to go and find a family-friendly, kumbaya, educational first content creator, they're out there. Are they going to be funny? No, but probably not. But there's you're going to find that out. You're going to find that out there. But the amount of people that I get who are just leave a negative thing and say, I hate the way that you do this, and then I click the little thing and it says follow back, and I'm like, why do you follow me? I think you need to speak with someone. You need to go get some professional help as to why you are choosing to live and watch and absorb content that makes you unhappy.
I hate followers. I'm sorry. I get that a lot on Twitter. It's like, why are you following me when you're totally against what I believe in? Please explain yourself.
But you know what, though? I don't block them. I let them watch.
Yep, same with me. I just let them watch. And then when they actually come on my thread, I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to expose you now. Have fun humiliating yourself.
That's not to say that there's not been plenty of times that someone slid into my DMs and said, and we had a real conversation. And whether we agreed to disagree or whether, like, you know, I was able to explain why I do things the way that I do. And they were like, oh, I didn't think about it from that perspective. Thank you. That shed some light. And I'm on board, you know, but I'm always willing to have a difficult conversation. But to come in and demand things like, you need to do this, you need to think this way, that's wild. But again, as I said in the beginning, it is almost always from someone in the queer community.
Yep. I mean, we need to get back to a point where we could just agree to disagree. Honestly, I don't even know what happened to that, like, base of living where we can agree to disagree. Like, don't be so quick to, like, I hate to use this term, but cancel people out. Like, don't be so quick to do it. Like, I see this a lot with trans people. Like, there's some trans people that are true reactionaries. They will flip out if a person, like, for example, I remember seeing a while back, this person had recently came out and, like, they literally disowned their mom because the mom didn't acknowledge their pronouns. It's like, do you not understand? Give them time. They're not transphobic just because they make a mistake and slip up. I mean, honestly, my mom did that for me for a while. Like, she misgendered me and she kind of dead named me. But, like, I was tolerant of it because I knew this is something she had to get used to. Of course, now, like, she acknowledges me as he, him, as her son, as Noah. Just give them time. Be patient. Yeah. Don't quit. Don't shut them out.
Yeah, we can't expect that the moment that we decide something for ourselves, that the entire world needs to adapt to that immediately. That's, I mean, it's not, one, unrealistic, but two, unfair, because, you know, these other people, we have to realize that our choices and who we are affects all of the people around us. And so, you know, like, going back, like, collective humility, but also individual humility, just to be like, because I it's not like I don't claim to be perfect, because I don't think none of us are, right? But, you know, there's been plenty of times in my life where I've had to go back and check myself and be like, you know what, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm overreacting. Like, they probably didn't mean it like that. So I think, you know, that's my one thing. I wish I could, you know, come on a podcast within the, you know, our community and praise and do nothing but praise, but, you know, it's just not been my experience that I've been fully welcomed. And so, like, that's really, like, the key that I just keep going back to is if we can realize that the street goes both ways. And I think that would really, really help our cause. And just not be such singular issue people.
Yeah, we really need to humble ourselves. I mean, honestly, like, enough with the Karen entitlement syndrome. I'm sorry, that's what I'm calling it now. Like, they exhibit true behaviors of Karens, and I mean, Justin can tell you how I feel about Karens. Like,
oh, the Karen spree.
I call it the Karen-demic. That's what I call it, the Karen-demic.
Oh yeah, it's the Karen-demic. But if it was you, you'd probably go on a Karen spree, searching out all the Karens and putting them on another planet.
Okay, honestly, like, okay, I'm going to be real. Okay, like, I did say this during COVID. Like, I suggested the Karens can have their own little island. We could build a wall around it. Like, we'll support them for about a year, but then after that, they're on their own. It could be Lord of the Flies. I don't care what they do. As long as we can restore some sanity back into this world. Like, I mean, seriously.
But
like,
what if I already lost all my sanity? There's no way.
Well, then we need to restore sanity.
Let's face it, the job that I have requires no sanity at all, because let's say I get sanity back, it's all going to be gone within maybe 5 minutes.
Well, hopefully that mindset will change. That is the point that we're trying to do on this network. We want to get it to a point where people aren't really completely losing their minds.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like,
I am
it
still
seems
here.
Hey, and we love you, Justin. We love you that you're here. But I know we're getting close to time, so I wanted to just kind of just give some closing remarks. So Misha, did you have any like last thoughts that you wanted to chime in?
I just want to say thank you for inviting me. I was said to you, Noah, when you reached out to me that it had been on my mind to come on some podcasts. It was something that I was putting off because of my schedule, but I'm really glad that you've popped my little cherry. No longer a little podcast virgin, and if anybody listening, if you ever need an ear, if you ever need someone to stand up for you, if you ever just need to vent, you can always reach out to me on my social media. Don't Cross the Gay Man across all platforms. I do read my DMs, and I'm always there to just lend a shoulder if you need, or if you need me to cuss somebody out. I also have no qualms cussing out a stranger in public.
Oh, I know.
Hey,
I've seen that. I am gonna say I look up to you on how you insult people. I'm sorry. Like, I get that type of replies and feedback actually, because I did a duet. I think it was over somebody had came over for, was it like the Oscars? Wasn't it? And they basically were totally racist against Little Nas X, and the way you insulted him, I'm sorry, that was just like the best. I want to learn how to insult like you. So please throw my way.
All need to know how to insult like Misha.
Yeah, it's improv classes. Because I'm an actor, and so like improv. Just remember, yes, and you're always thinking yes, and I'll accept it, and I'll add on to it. But also, I have a fiance, and he's also very quick-witted, and I get a lot of my material from him.
We're gonna have to do some studying then, Justin. Yeah, because I simply just call him garbage. So
no. In all fairness, vile garbage. You forgot vile.
Okay, yeah. That has been kind of my trademark is vile garbage. Okay, well, still, regardless. Well, like anytime if you ever want to come back and just talk, we will always welcome you here with open arms. So. But I actually wanted to say a quick last message too. Just please keep strong. I know like everything in this world seems really negative. I mean, let's be real, it is kind of negative. But let's highlight the positives. A small victory. Just the fact that you're awake and breathing. Celebrate that. I know that there's a lot of stuff going on, but like what I always say, the hate that's going around, please use that as a motivator to keep fighting. Do not let it silence you. Just know that you are your own human being. You're your own individual. You are unique. Do not let anybody tell you different. Keep fighting. Stay strong. Justin, did you have any last words before we close?
You said exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, so apparently I'm the mind reader. Okay, well, not.
You always read my mind.
I have the Jedi. Well, I have Baby Yoda in the room. That's why.
Use Baby Yoda.
Force. Yes, of course. I gotta have Baby Yoda. If I don't, then he does not give me positive energy. I need positive energy. But yeah. Anyways, I want to thank everybody who is going to be listening. I cannot wait to release more of these episodes. Please continue to like and subscribe our YouTube channel, Trans Radical Activist Network. Twitter is trans_radical22, or not 22, trans_radical. I'm sorry. We just changed the name on that. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, besties.
Okay.